To all of you that have had the privilege of sitting next to Chester singing that song, and you can probably hear his voice, probably singing in every note but the right one, but he employs the shotgun method, so he gets it eventually, but I could hear him almost singing it next to me. So as I was thinking about what to say, I figured that everybody would probably touch on just about everything that I would want to say, so I was thinking that I'd probably just share two of the lessons across the years that I've learned from him. And there are so many more than just two, but to keep things short, we'll stick with two. So my grandfather, who I've called Poppy for my entire life, I don't really know where that came from. We're not Italian, but we've gone with it, and I'll probably stick with that for my kids. But he was a man of nearly mythical proportions. And I grew up hearing the stories of his time in the military, his time in the Navy, and his time growing up, how he built the house that we would come back to every other summer or so. And these stories soon became legends to me and my brothers. They were stories about how he blew up a stump in his front yard with a couple of sticks of dynamite. And this stump, it was a fairly large stump if you know the kind of trees that Chet likes to take down. And he blew the stump up, and it went so high and so far that it actually landed on the neighbor's chicken coop. So these are the kind of stories that I just had in repeat in my childhood, and I started to form this mental picture of the kind of person that my grandfather was. And it wasn't quite God status, but it was one status below that. And I definitely started to see him as invincible. And not quite on the Superman level, but more on the Russell Wilson level. As long as he's in the pocket, he's good. Or our current president's ego, So yeah, I never really seen any form of weakness in him. And at the same time, I had also come to know him as an incredibly soft-hearted person. So while he was almost the picture, the ideal, the prototype for what it meant to be a tough man, he never complained about anything. And most of you guys probably know that. He always did everything with a joyful attitude. Even singing, which he wasn't the best at. And so I knew that I aspired to be like him as far as toughness went, but so often, men at least, tend to go all the way to the tough side and then spurn the emotional side. And my grandfather was actually a very emotional, soft-hearted person. He was able to be very honest with the emotions that he felt, and I can think of countless times where I would see him tearing up at church or tearing up in a conversation, and he always carried a handkerchief in his pocket, and it wasn't to blow his nose, it was just to dab at his eyes. And so I saw this paradox of a man that was so tough, smelled like two-stroke fumes all the time, and yet carried a handkerchief in his front pocket because his heart was continually tugged by the things that he heard, saw around him, that his tears were welling up. And so I saw this man, and I've had the fortunate privilege of actually being related to him, but to have the strength of character and the strength of his identity, really, because he was able to show emotion in a way that a lot of us aren't because we're afraid of how it's perceived, and also to see the externality of it as well. So that was something that I've really taken that to heart, that it's not weakness to show emotion. And the other thing, I just want to share one story about kind of his toughness. And this is something that again, one of the legends that I've heard over the years. But a while back, and I think this might have been when I was a 1-year-old or 2-year-old, but my parents were planning on taking a vacation from life in Nepal, and they were going to go to Thailand. And this was going to be the first time that my grandparents were going to come out to Asia and visit my parents, and it was going to be this really special occasion, and they were all going to go away to the beach and just relax before then they would go off to Nepal and they would see what life was like there. And a few days, and I don't know the exact details, but somewhere in the vicinity of a few days, Chet actually spilled molten metal on his leg. And without telling my grandmother, decided that he would just wear pants for a while so that she wouldn't find out. Because he knew that if she found out, she would cancel the whole trip. And he didn't want that. He was really excited about it. So, and Chester actually wears pants fairly often. It's actually a little bit of a sore spot with him. He takes it tongue-in-cheek, but one of his good friends, Larry, when he saw his legs for the first time, he said, "Chet, is that you or are you riding a chicken?" So it's a little bit of a sore spot there. So he usually keeps the pants. But in Thailand, as you know, it's fairly hot, so he had to finally put on some shorts, and when my grandmother finally saw, she freaked out. So it was a good thing that he hid it from her, otherwise the trip probably would have been canceled. But that's just one testament to his mental fortitude, that he could hide a wound of that scale for so long, especially on a trans-Pacific flight for 12 hours. So I actually had the privilege just a few days before he passed, maybe a few weeks, to come up here, and he was still very mentally present. And I came with this anticipation of having a conversation with him about his family legacy. So I look around and I see that all of our families, I know the Whitmans and the Websters, we are all we're very tight family units. Even though we've gone to different states, we've moved away, we're still tight. And so I wanted to talk to my grandpa about what he wanted to leave behind as his family legacy. What did he want his family to be known by? And so as I asked him this question, without even skipping a beat, without pausing to think about it, and without really even hesitating, he responded with one word, and that was love. And I knew that he would probably have been thinking about that very subject quite a bit in the recent days. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, wow, how profound, because that's exactly what I think of when I think of him, just in the way that he interacts with really everybody that he sees. Doesn't matter what job you hold, doesn't matter what family you come from, doesn't matter where you're from. The way that he interacts with people was, again, part of my elevation of his character, because everybody that he talked to, it was almost like he was sharing some inside joke with them. And as a kid, I couldn't figure out how he knew so many people, but really, he just related to everybody like they were old friends. And he would always give that characteristic Chet impish smile, like he was in on some joke. And there was just this way, this equalizing effect that he had on everybody that he encountered, where he just saw them as equals, and he related to them, and he made eye contact with them. And it just had this profound effect of elevating whoever he spoke to, because they knew that he was actually seeing them as a person and not as a means to something else. And I think, especially for my generation, where we become kind of immersed in our own daily life, just to be able, as a kid especially, to go along, follow him along in his day-to-day life, and to see the effects, really the ripple effects of his life on other people, and things that he wasn't going out of his way to do. This is just who he was. And his love wasn't something that he had to force. It wasn't something that he manufactured and had to create. It was just a byproduct of who he was, and really a byproduct of the love of God that was just overflowing out of his life. And so as I was thinking of just a scripture to read, the obvious one that came to mind is 1 Corinthians 13, the famous passage on love. So I'm just going to read this. And so many of these characteristics of love were embodied by my grandfather. And yeah, I think he is a great model for us as a family for what it looks like to walk in God's love and then overflowing that love to the people around us. So I'm just going to read this out. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. And love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails.